Welcome to this episode of Inside the Gym podcast. I'm Chris Gilbert, your host for this episode, and today our guest is Michael Smith. Michael is a business consultant, more on the financial side of business. He's worked with quite a few gym owners. Him and I have had multiple conversations, and I thought with some of the questions I've gotten about the financial side and some requests to bring someone on the podcast more to talk about the financial side, I thought it'd be a good time to bring Michael on, let him tell you a little bit about his background, his experiences, and some of the things he's been able to help gym owners with from a finance side. So, Michael, before we get started talking about the greens of the gym business, can you tell people like a little bit about your background and why like they might want to listen to things that you're talking about?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, I appreciate you having me on. So my experience, I have about 10 years in operational experience running couple different business units for some tech companies. And the principles of business are pretty consistent regardless of the type. A healthy business is a healthy business. If it's profitable, they're healthy. Revenue growth, things like that. A lot of the projections and things that you deal with on a large scale with a corporate business really do apply to a smaller business. The difference is usually the tangibility of the things that you're working with, the nuts and bolts particularly. But the principles of business are all the same. And so I've taken my experience in the corporate world that I have with business, kind of translated it to supporting some small businesses here and there. And then from a gym perspective, I've been in some form of the gym community for almost my whole life, training in different modalities and different things over years. So it's really good to give back to some of the community members, whether I'm helping them as clients or just in general providing some insight.
Nice. In your experience, like what is like for a gym owner, because we both know that a lot of gym owners don't have a business background. That's not their forte. They're passionate about gyms, they're passionate about training or about the fitness industry, and they decide to open a gym and they don't really have that background knowledge for being a business owner. Where's the first place for them to start?
Sure. And I don't think this is necessarily unique to gym owners, but I see it a lot in small businesses, gyms, which are typically, is tracking and paying attention to your finances. So understanding where all of your revenue is coming in from which facets, and then where it's going out. So where your costs are, where you're spending your money, where you should be spending your money versus you actually are spending your money, and paying attention to those and putting it together in some form of reporting so that there you can at least evaluate or see those trends to try to determine if whether or not what you're doing with your business is working or you're headed to a cliff that you don't actually see yet. So that's the number one thing. And a lot of times it stems from either anxiety around looking at that information. So either that information is scary because it tells me my business is not healthy, or maybe it's a lack of knowledge or understanding around how to put those things together or even how to interpret a lot of the data, because there's a lot of tools that you can get now built into checking accounts and business tools and things like that. Quick and really easy stuff to get that gives you a lot of data about what do I do with this data? How do I interpret it? And that can be really stressful for folks. So that's usually the thing that I see when I meet with small business clients.
So what you're saying is like starting to track your like profits and losses, like P&L.
Correct.
So I'll use the term you were trying. I think you were trying not to, but so first tracking your profit and losses can help you understand like the areas that are making you money and the areas that are losing you money, so you can make adjustments to those things.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and you know where your money's going, right? You know whether or not what you're spending your money on is actually making you more money or providing some sort of value, right? There's more to a business and value than just revenue, right? You might be providing your clients with good value by purchasing something or doing something that costs you money. All just depends.
So with that, I'm assuming that gym owners who aren't experienced and haven't had that experience in like tracking their losses or tracking even their profits, the businesses probably have, you and I had talked before about that they have a tendency to leak money. How does a business owner even really find those leaks? And is there ways that are easy or better for them to fix them after they find them?
Mm-hmm. So you determine where you're spending your money by tracking those costs. So, right, I would say at a minimal, a quarterly level, meaning every quarter within the year, you should look at where your money's going. Although, to be honest, you really should do it more often than that. It can become obsessive depending on your personality type, but you want to track your costs really on a weekly basis to see where your money's going, and then paying attention to those things and seeing those transactions across your different accounts to say, like, okay, we spent this much on toilet paper, paper towels, chalk, whatever it is, on a regular basis to try to determine, because those little costs sometimes can add up, right? You spend $50 a week on something across an entire year, and you've spent a lot of money. And if that item, whatever it is, isn't providing you with the best value for your business, that's a problem. That's the best way to do it, is just like you said with the P&L statement, evaluate where those costs are going, and then determine, do I need to spend this money? Can I change vendors and spend that money more wisely, or can I reduce this cost in general? A lot of people, when it comes to cost reduction, or just really operationally in a business from an efficiency perspective, a lot of people want to find the silver bullet, right? What's the one thing I can do to my business that will make me 30% more profitable? Those don't exist. You're not going to find it. That's not how business works. Sure, there are larger things that you can do to your business to make it more profitable. However, typically those larger things, you have to spend money to get into those things to then make your business long-term more profitable. Whereas from a small business perspective, it's much more efficient and effective to look at everything and say, how can I tweak everything to make it a little bit more profitable, or a little bit more value with whatever it is that I'm providing. So it's not just about where is my cost going, but is it the value that I want for whatever I'm spending?
Right. Yeah. Like, I'm assuming like I've been to some gyms that have essentially wet wipes, wet wipe stations around the gym for people to clean the equipment. And then I've been to gyms that use paper towels and spray bottles. And I've been to gyms that have rags that they wash or towels that they wash. And I would assume that while one may not be that much more expensive than the other, and one may be a bigger investment at the beginning than the other, over an entire year, those differences can really add up.
And that could be a good example of the experience of your clientele, right? Because if you do paper towels or a towel, people might use those for sweat, versus if you do the wet wipe, I'm not going to wipe my face with a bleach wipe. That would be good. So that's a good factor too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's interesting the way you see it different gyms, and I wonder if most gyms have even tracked whether that's even like a good expenditure for them or not. But.
They should. Cleaning the gym is obviously an important factor. So the way in which you do it, whether it's by yourself, requiring the members to do a little bit, and then you come in and do a deep clean, like all those different variations, they cost different things. So yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. One of the things we talked about, because obviously I'd mentioned that you and I had multiple conversations beforehand, was understanding like ROI. For anyone who hasn't like had any education in business, or ROI is simply return on investment. I'm not trying to be the business consultant here. That's Michael's job. But we were talking about like how to track your ROI and how to understand like if buying this piece of equipment is a good idea, or if buying a piece of equipment was a good investment, or if adding certain things to the gym were a good investment. Like, could you speak a little bit to like how to understand ROI and when it comes to like adding to your gym?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, return on investment. So from a fundamentals perspective, you take whatever your investment costs, you figure out how much revenue am I going to get from that. Sometimes it's more tangible. So like marketing campaigns and things like that, it might be a real direct correlation to, I spent X number amount on ads, which produced 500 ads. For every 500 ads, I get one new client, right? It might be that tangible. Gym equipment is a little less tangible sometimes, because you might not know who joined the gym for the piece of equipment that you buy. So you might have to like ask your clientele, hey, what do you guys think? And get some feedback from your members and your clients as to whether or not the investments that you're making are good. But you still need to at least understand that before you make the investment. So you have to kind of judge and know the market that you're working within, right? Is the piece of equipment that you're about to buy, is that something that no other gym within a 50-mile radius has? And does that make you more appetizing as a gym to bring in new members and things like that. So you take your initial cost of your investment, how much revenue that's going to make you typically on a monthly basis, because you're most likely you're not going to make all that back in 1 month. And then you take, okay, if that's going to make me, if it's $1,000 investment, it's going to make me an extra $100 a month. I have 10 months until I've paid off my investment. And then from there, that new is all new revenue that the business is profiting from. So from a basic math perspective, that's kind of how you break it out. You got to figure out how long it's going to take you based on whatever it is. And it might not always be linear, right? I gave an example where it's, what they call the managed spread across evenly. You might get a bump because you combined it with a campaign or something like that. So you might initially get 30 new members, and then maybe it tails off to 1 or 2 after that. And so it takes you longer over time to get those new members based on whatever investment that it is that you did. But it's really important for people to understand that it's not always going to happen right away, right? That's number one, especially for certain things. And then also, sometimes you make an investment that doesn't turn out the way that you wanted it to. And that's a bummer for business owners, but failure is a part of business. So you have to kind of understand that you might have expenditures from an investment perspective that don't give you a good return, or the return isn't what you thought it was, and you have to adjust that strategy towards how you get your ROI back on whatever it is. Maybe it's use it for 6 months and realize this thing ain't making me money. I need to cut my losses now and resell it before it loses too much value or something like that.
Yeah. And I would think that group fitness is something that, like, I'm shocked at how many gym owners offer group fitness at the same rate that they offer just open gym. And my guess is that most of them probably really haven't tracked the ROI of group fitness.
Yeah, because classes are a great way to bring people into the gym who maybe aren't members, right? So you could get outside people, which would be an additional. And then the other is like, if you take that one instructor's cost versus open gym, and you spread that across the number of people that come into the class, you can determine like the cost of having this one instructor for $60 an hour, and I get an additional revenue every week of, say, $500. Well, I'm making more money from outside people coming in, or it's added value if I tack on to your membership. So like some of the Globo gyms will do basic memberships, and then if you want access to classes and other things like that, you pay an additional tier, which brings in additional revenue. And deciding where you are from a price point is really important, right? You have to know your clientele. You don't want to be in a market where you're the most expensive gym by twice the amount and your offering is half of what everybody else is, right? Now you just priced yourself out of the market. And the inverse is true too. You don't want to be so cheap that people are like, why is this place so cheap? Like, is this am I going to mugged outside this gym or something like that? Like there's, you want to target your audience appropriately from a cost perspective.
Speaking of that, is there other formulas, or is there a good way for a gym owner who's just getting started or trying to like make sure that their offering matches their price? Are there formulas out there for them to figure out, okay, I have this much square footage and I'm in this sort of area and I have this kind of equipment or something, and this is the price I should be at? Or is there any kind of like anything that can help them out there to figure out what their price should be? Or is it just more of a comparison versus the market?
So it would be, so you would have to find out what that ratio exists at other gyms. So I would call that market research, right? Take a span of where you think. So like you could probably use Google or AI as a really good tool to get started, where you ask it questions about the market that you're in, like based on demographics, how far do people travel for work, right? Because most people go to the gym, I would say if they don't work from home full time, they're going to the gym that's either on their way to work or on their way home from work, or it's within their home radius. So first you establish what's my market space. So what is the bubble that I work in that I'm competing with? Then you figure out how many gyms are in that space. And then you would figure out what are the offerings that those gyms offer and what are their monthly rates, which all of that you can probably find out from the other gyms' websites. And, it's not uncommon in business to do research on your competition, especially when you're trying to establish a price point. the finite piece that like you described, right, is like, how does my value per square foot match to theirs? That's going to be probably a little difficult to figure out unless you can get access to how big their gyms actually are. I don't know whether this would be frowned upon in the gym community or not, but if I were opening a gym, I would go to the gyms in the area, at least see what they got going on. I would probably be transparent about it, maybe, or maybe not, depending on the kind of person I am. But I could see that being a little weird, potentially. The Globo gyms, right? You can kind of get a feel for what a lot of those offer and what the difference is and the different types. The more local ones might be a little bit more difficult. They might be a little resistant to you coming into their gym, even if you're potentially opening up and being one of their competitors, or maybe not. Depends on how healthy the competition is in the area. But determining what your competition is doing, and then usually you want to shoot for kind of the middle spot initially. And there's nothing wrong with changing your rates over time as long as you're adding value, right? I would assume most gyms wouldn't want to decrease their rate. Like that would usually be a way of maybe if you expanded and you have a large volume increase of clientele, then you can decrease your monthly rate and hit the same revenue amount per month potentially. But I would assume that's probably less common. Whereas over time, you might want to increase if you add space, you add equipment, you add classes, you add all those things. Hey, grandfathered members get consistent rate, maybe a smaller increase, and then all new members after a certain point go up after you do some additional research and establish yourself in the market. That's the easiest way to do that. So from a formula perspective, you would basically just figure out how is my value on a monthly total revenue that I need to get to. So like where's my watermark for just breaking even is usually a good starting point, especially initially in the business, right? You want to break even every month is the initial goal. Obviously a profit is the ultimate goal, but you got to get there first.
Right.
How does that monthly amount and the number of members that I need compare to some of the local competition? And then you just do a ratio to figure out like, okay, these 5 gyms are all at about $50 a month. I think I'm going to have a little bit better space. I think I can maybe justify 65 and then see where you land in the market. And then, running promos and getting people in the door is a good way to kind of ramp up that revenue initially to try to get things jump started there. So I hope that answers your question. That was a good question.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think there's also a floor. Like I've talked to a lot of gym owners about the fact that as a good, solid, locally owned gym, you don't want to try to compete with the big city fitnesses on price. And having a price slightly above theirs gives people a different feeling when they come into your gym and they're expecting more. You got to provide more, but they're going to be expecting more. And you're going to get a different level of clientele coming into your gym than the people who just go to the big city fitness because it's $25 a month.
Right. And those big box gyms those global box gyms they're reliant on the unfortunate fact that so many people sign up for memberships that don't show up. Like a lot of those are way over capacity. If all their members showed up at one time, obviously nobody's showing up at the same time across the entire member base. But they're really relying on the difficulty of canceling a membership to keep a lot of those giant volume businesses afloat, which is probably, if I had to guess, not the model like for smaller gyms. They want people in the door so that people see the community, because community is a major part of the more local gyms, as you know.
Yeah. And yeah, I've heard anywhere from 70 to 85% of members of the purple box don't ever go to the gym, but that's beside the point.
From a personal finance perspective, that's horrible. Don't spend money on stuff you don't use.
Right. Yeah. 100%. What are some of the other like common big mistakes? I don't want to say mistakes, but some of the other common things that gym owners currently aren't doing or probably aren't doing. So we don't want to obviously blanket statement that they're not doing all of them, but some of the common things that gym owners probably aren't doing that they could be doing to like help them better understand their financial like healthiness of their business.
So like we said, the P&L is a big one. And understanding how much investment you put into the gym. A lot of gym owners I talked to that started small. They bought a piece, slowly added to their gym, maybe even moved a couple spaces. Understanding that growth trajectory and understanding where you want to go. So for any business, when you start, you want a plan. I would suggest at least a 1-year plan. Typically, you do different plans. You do a 1-year, a 3-year, and a 5-year plan that says, okay, the business is going to start at this place, then we're going to grow to this amount, and then we're maybe even going to dip a little at the end of year 3 so that we can slingshot over through year 5. So that would be a big one, is have a plan and have a backup plan. So like plan A is this, we're gonna hope for this, and when that thing fails, we're gonna shift and adjust and go in this direction a little bit, so that way there we can make sure we're staying alive. Because like I mentioned before, you're going to fail. Something in your business, you're gonna make a mistake, or you're gonna believe in something so wholeheartedly that it takes forever to really take off and make you the money that you need it to, or it's not. You're the only one that sees it. You're the only one in your area that wants it. And nobody else wants it. That's just life sometimes. So you want a plan B. And then the other is understanding like the overall investment over time, so that you can get a real wide view to know this is long term. This is my goal, not just those 1-year, 3-year, 5-year plan, but like, is your goal as a business owner when you started it to not have to work your daily job, to be able to retire off this, to be able to build it, sell it, to be able to open up 13 locations across your state? Like, what's your overall goal? And maybe those are part of your 1, 3, and 5-year plan. You kind of want to know where you're going overall. So that's important as well.
You mentioned like to not work your daily job, and that was we actually had a podcast episode recently about being able to leave your daily job and just solely focus on the gym. But are there some markers that gym owners should look for? Because I've heard gym owner after gym owner recommend, like, don't give up your day job when you start your gym, so that way you can reinvest everything in the gym. Are there markers gym owners should look for to go, okay, like, and this is I'm going to give you a 2-part question. I hope this isn't too much at one time. Are there markers that gym owners can look for to say, okay, first, now it's okay for me to start hiring people? How do I know like how many people to hire at a time and when to hire people? And then further down the road, are there markers for them to go, okay, now we're healthy enough for me to not have to work a day job?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And those 2 questions are tied together. So I'll answer the second one and then circle back to the first one. So for the second one, when do you, and this applies to any business owner, is when do I pay myself a salary out of the business? And really, it's a personal question for the business owner, because a lot of business owners are super reluctant to do it, and then a lot of them do it right off the rip and like kind of sacrifice a lot of the revenue out of the business. Sometimes they try to pay themselves these huge exorbitant salaries out of their business when it can't really sustain. And the answer to that question, in my opinion, is when the amount of things that you're doing for the business are providing enough value for you to warrant that revenue and a salary going to you as an employee of the business. You're now an employee, whether it's managing a team of people, and we'll get back to when you should hire people, or it's the daily operations of being a salesperson for your gym, meaning marketing and things like that. Maybe you're cleaning your gym and the cost that it would take to those. When those things accumulate to my time is valuable enough that I can pay myself to do these duties for my gym, that's when I would tell that business owner to take a hard look and determine that. And the revenue has to be there for it. So you have to not only be doing those things, but those things have to be making the business money. Because if you're just doing those things and those things aren't making the business money, well, A, why are you doing what you're doing? You should evaluate that. But also, if it's not tangibly giving you the return, you need to adjust that, change it. Once it is, so if you're getting, once your revenue hits a certain cap where you can say, I can shave off this $60,000 a year post-tax for myself to pay myself a salary to quit my office job, and then I can go even more full throttle into the gym, and I think it'll give me even more long to midterm. Okay, then make the decision. Just know it's going to be tough initially, almost guaranteed. There's always hidden costs with employment. There's taxes. There's workers' comp insurance. There's other benefits you might want to pay your employees. There's payroll from a generating payroll perspective. You might have to buy a new software. So there's all those hidden costs that I would say make sure that all those are factored into your decision, that you make a good decision. And then circling back to the question about when do you hire someone to do it, it might be more financially effective for you to keep your day job and hire someone to run your gym, for example. You might be able to pay someone at a lower rate. You might have a really decent job that you actually still like doing, that you want to keep doing, that makes you a good salary to support your family or whatever the situation is for your personal finances. And then you can shovel a little bit back in. So determining whether or not you should hire someone to do those things is kind of the same thought process in, am I doing things that my time is more valuable doing other things? So am I cleaning my gym every day and it's taking me an hour and a half to 2 hours of my own time that's keeping me away from my family, which is more valuable to me potentially, or it's impacting my job that I do work on the side that helps pay my bills at home and at the gym sometimes? And if so, is it more effective for me to hire a cleaning person to come in and clean the gym? Am I dealing with phone calls and emails from new members and trying to get things off the ground from a growth perspective, and I need someone to run the day-to-day operations of my business because my time is more valuable somewhere else? Then that's when you make the decision to hire those additional staff or whatever it is. And then you have instances where you hire people on that help generate revenue for your business. Trainers, for example, coaches, if you do classes or things like that. And that's an example where maybe you do keep a couple clients yourself that you've had forever that you still work with, and then you bring in a trainer to help grow your business, bring in their clients, and now you get a little bit of their rent or however you work out that negotiation. And then now your business is growing. So that's a person that you add that adds revenue, and every person you add to your business should add value, but maybe some add revenue where others give you more time as a business owner to kind of shift your priorities.
Yeah, and I guess when you first start, like most gym owners pretty much do everything themselves when they first start.
Yep.
So my guess is the recommendation would be to look at what are the most least skilled things that you could potentially hire someone to do to give you the time to do the more skilled things that an owner needs to focus on.
Potentially. Sometimes it's what am I good at and what am I not good at? And that's in general, right, as a person, right? And tracking your finances might be a good example. Cleaning could be a good example. Maybe you hate it. Maybe you hate cleaning the gym, but you do it because right now we can't afford it. I got to mop these floors. It's like,
right.
Or it could be personal training. Maybe you really like doing that, so you're going to keep doing that. You're going to pay somebody else to run it. Maybe it's answering emails and doing marketing. I know sales for me does not come naturally. So if I were going to run a business that needed a good outside salesperson, I would hire someone as an outside salesperson to help grow my business because it's not something that I actively enjoy doing, for example. So it's really, what am I good at so that I can be successful? Because any business owner, or really as a person, being astute enough to understand your shortcomings and where you need help is really important. And a lot of business owners get in a trap. It's not just gyms, but a lot of business owners get in a trap where I have to do everything. We don't have money, or it doesn't matter whether I can afford it or not. I have to do everything. When sometimes adjusting where you're spending your money can save you some money enough to carve out. And also sometimes if you believe in a vision enough, you can take on a little bit more of an expense and work with a partner to grow the business or something like that you're not good at, that things work out and they expand more quickly than you expected, for example. So.
Yeah, and it was funny when you started talking about things that you're good at or not good at. I've always kind of thought like hiring a cleaning service would probably be. I used to think hiring a cleaning service would probably be one of the first things you want to do, but I've actually kind of changed my thought process on that recently, because I've been to a bunch of gyms where I've seen the owners cleaning the gyms, and it changes the optics for the members. So I think that you need to, when you start hiring people, take into account the optics of what you're doing to the members, for the members. And like you said, like if you're not great at tracking the finances or doing the paperwork or the bookwork, maybe that's the first place to hire. And that's not something that the members are going to see you do or not see you do. Because in a locally owned gym, the more the members and the employees see the owner do, the more they're going to do those kind of things also.
That's a good point.
That makes sense. Like,
Oh, yeah.
if the members see the owner cleaning the gym, they're going to feel guilty and they're going to clean up after themselves.
Sure. Yeah. And it also creates an atmosphere, right? Your culture, the atmosphere that you create in your gym is why members stay members there, right? You can find good equipment in most places, right? I'm sure there's some places that are so remote that maybe it's a little more difficult to find good quality equipment and things like that. But the atmosphere is really what keeps people and retains them as clients, which is the goal. It's always easier to retain existing clientele than it is to grow and get new. So that retention is really important.
You brought up P&Ls again, and we mentioned earlier that there are tools out there to help you track those sort of things. Are there some of them that are better than others, or is it more of a personal choice?
Probably a combination of the two. Although what I will say is a lot of the business checking accounts and things like that online, like Chase has a great service. They provide you with a lot of graphs and things and good ways to sort and all that. Excel is a huge tool too, and there's tons of resources online to learn how to use Excel. I personally, like 10 years ago, learned how to use Excel through the internet, like through YouTube and some classes and things like that over time. So you can learn to do a lot with a little in Excel alone. And then there's obviously more like robust tools and things like that. And that's a matter of investment, right? At least it's a write-off if you pay for like Quicken or something like that. But it'll give you more interpretation kind of than just raw graphs. And then there's always AI. I utilize AI in my business all the time. It's super valuable. It can reduce administrative workload by doing remedial tasks for you, but also it can give you different perspectives and interpret data in ways that human beings can't, just because it's designed to do that in certain instances. There's AI models and things that are designed for financial data or just data in general that can kind of give you a good perception. So I would say it's what your business can afford right now, which might mean as a brand new business owner, this sucks. I got to sit every Saturday morning and go through the checking account and export it into Excel and sort and just make sure that I know where everything went. And at least I'm checking on things and things like that. Or it could mean we're going to invest, in a nice checking account, and we're going to get a good software platform, and we're going to manage this that way.
Okay, yeah, no, those are the good suggestions. When it comes to increasing, like we've talked a couple of times about profit centers on other podcast episodes. Are there things that gym owners should be careful about, or make sure they pay very close attention to when it comes to like adding something that could potentially be a profit center, but also could end up not making them profit?
Yeah,
like group classes, or like adding a smoothie bar, or things like that.
Yep. Yeah, I would say there's always a risk, right? And it goes back to understanding your market, understanding your clientele, the niche that you fill as a business, and then like we talked about with the ROI. So if I invest $15,000, say, to open up a smoothie bar, how long is it going to take me? If I sell one smoothie a day, how long is it going to take me to get that back, right? And then there's different ways that you can market those things. So understanding your initial investment, understanding your market, knowing what that market can sustain and whether or not it's going to be of value to your members or not. And then understanding where can I price this so that way there you can be profitable without overpricing it, right? Anytime you can increase your streams of revenue, whether it be in a business or personal finances, frankly, you increase your probability of being more profitable, depending on where the costs are for that entry, right? A lot of bigger businesses, they'll have different business units, and some of those business units are revenue generating. They just get the top line to where it needs to be to help sustain another side of the business that is super lucrative and very profitable. So from a gym perspective, that's kind of how you might need to look at things. Say your members keep the lights on, right? Those are your giant revenue generating things. And then I make great markup on my t-shirts, or I make great markup on the smoothie, or maybe I price the t-shirts. I think you gave me an example once of somebody who basically gave away their shirts and their logo, their swag at cost because it's free marketing. It's a great idea because now you're producing a product that people love, that people will wear. I wear gym t every time I drop into a gym, unless it's a global gym. I'm buying the t-shirt because usually they're pretty good, and it shows that I have that. It's kind of a thing in the community, and if you're giving that to me at a good price, I'm definitely going to buy one. And then now I'm marketing for your business. So those sort of strategies are really smart. And then I'm going to keep going back to it. If you have an idea and you try it and it fails, evaluate that really objectively and ask the people around you that you care about to provide you with genuine feedback on things in your life, to say, did this go wrong because I executed it poorly, or did this go wrong because this idea is bad? Like, someone please tell me, did this not work and why? To kind of figure out whether or not it was a good idea in the first place. Maybe do that at first, but sometimes you get an idea and you believe in it so wholeheartedly that you try to make it work, and maybe it doesn't. So anytime you can increase revenue, it's a great thing, especially if it's profitable.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the shirts and the merch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to understand that ROI doesn't always account for increased revenue. You can get ROI out of things that doesn't increase your revenue. If you're providing merch at a good price that your members want to buy it, I mean, some gyms make tons of revenue off of their merch. Some gyms sell their merch at a super low price to make sure their members are buying tons of it, and they're out in the community all the time, like wearing it. Both of those are great ROI. And I think it's important to understand the ROI that you're getting from both sides.
Yeah, it's about value, right? The value. Sometimes that value is tangible revenue into the business. Sometimes that value is culture. Sometimes it's marketing. Sometimes it's because it makes me feel good to do this thing.
Yeah. Or sometimes if some guy drops by your gym and wants to review it and post it online, you like say, have a great time.
Yeah. Yeah. You give them a free t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. I have a lot of those, by the way. So are there other things you think that, like, in this initial first conversation, and we'll probably have you back on it sometime in the future as I get more specific questions from like gym owners, potential gym owners, but are there other things you think that that gym owners should look at like right away?
So I would say don't wait, and don't let the anxiety of evaluating the finances of your business get to you. You got to do it. It's really important. A lot of people open businesses who are not business people, whether it be gym owners or different avenues, right? I've worked with a couple restaurant owners who are phenomenal chefs. They don't know anything about running a business, let alone a restaurant. They're just figuring it out. You got to do it. You got to put in the homework to understand your market. You got to put in the homework to understand your business and the finances. Don't be afraid of it. Solicit help if you need to, whether it be AI tools, other people in your life, or the internet in general, to try to figure things out. Don't be afraid of that. And in general, I'll keep saying it, failure is part of business, period. Sometimes you start something and you fail, and you do it 5 or 6 times until it finally sticks. There are a tremendous amount of people who are in business who didn't get successful until way later after trying several different things. So,
and I recently found out, like you were talking about resources and tools, I recently found out from a gym owner that she took some small business classes from the local library. So there are free resources out there to help you. And this was in Baltimore County, but I'm assuming that there are probably like small business classes and small business seminars, things like that are offered across the country, wherever you are, that you can sign up for, because, you know, communities and government try to promote small business as much as they can, at least on the surface. That's a political thing back and forth, whether you believe that or not. But at least on the surface, they try to provide tools to promote small business. So there are classes and seminars and things like that can help teach you some of the things that you don't know if there are a lot of questions that you have, or you're brand new to owning a business. There are resources. So
yeah, and as you market your business, solicit feedback from other people in business that have small businesses, right? If I were a gym and I was in a shopping plaza or something like that, and all the businesses around me were small businesses, I would make some sort of attempt to market to those businesses, right? Whether it's discounted membership for people that work in the plaza or something like that. But in general, and one of those people might be good at something that I'm not, right? And now I can get support from that person. Generally, people who are successful business owners want to help other business owners out. And they say that the people in your circles reflect who you are as a person. So if you surround yourself by other business owners who are successful, it'll increase your chances just by osmosis of being around those other business owners for reflecting, for experience, and things like that.
Yeah, and finding a great mentor doesn't necessarily always mean finding a great mentor that's a gym owner.
Yep.
Like finding someone who has built a small business and done a great job, they can help you with a lot of things that may not necessarily be about your gym. But if you're an equipment nerd, you don't need help figuring out what equipment to buy. There's probably a lot of other things you need help with that finding a mentor that's great at those things, they might really be able to help you.
Totally agree. Absolutely.
So, did you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. This was really good.
Yeah, I thought this went really well, and I appreciate you coming on. And we'll put some links down in the comments, and we'll probably have Michael back on. So if you have other questions that you'd like us to have Michael back on, please put those questions down in the comments, and we'll have him back on. We'll answer some more of your financial questions and get you back some more greens.
Yep.
All right. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content.